just some house cleaning. So after this speaker, we'll have cocktails and hors d'oeuvres outside the doors. So our next speaker is Create Marketing Engineers Love. So Rebecca Geier, CEO and co-founder of TREW Marketing, is based out of Austin, Texas. She has over 20 years of global marketing experience, primarily in the B2B science, engineering, and technology fields. She and the TREW crew are passionate believers in taking a smart, integrated marketing approach to effectively compel technical audience to take action. And no marketing plan is complete without clear, measurable objectives and a mechanism to report and tweak along the way. So I'd like to welcome Rebecca Geier up to the stage. Thank you.
Is that computer? I need to just, can you help me? I need to type in this password really quick. This password, because I need this computer to be up. All right, so I got the fun challenge of bringing up the tail for the day. I'm ready for it, I'm ready for the challenge. I'm also a big fan of Captain Morgan, so, all right, cool. Right here, just hit the green.
Oh, that's just your slides.
Yeah, super.
That's a clicker.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Thrilled to be here. And I always like to start out with a little fun, personal touch. So a little bit of history about me. I actually was born right here in the Windy City a number of decades ago. I'll leave it at that. My father was a United Airlines pilot after the military, so we made our way to San Francisco. After a number of years in California, my Texan parents thought, we've got to get out of this crazy state with these crazy people, but I can still save a couple of my children. We went back to Texas, and then I totally freaked them out and went to the other coast. But I did make my way back to Texas after college. Spent a number of years at a company called National Instruments. Who's familiar with NI? All right, there's a good brand. I felt like the wallpaper there. I was there for about 14 years. This is actually a picture of me and Dr. Trouchard, the co-founder and CEO, doing the symbolic opening of the NASDAQ market, because of course there's no opening of that market. Someone clicks a button and it's on. So I was there a number of years. Absolutely fantastic experience, and I feel like so much of what I learned and what I practice today, of course, was built in my beliefs and the values, a lot of what Rich talked about, but in particular, the methodology of how to do marketing specifically to engineers and scientists. And I just have so much loyalty to NI, and they were huge advocates for me and my business partner when we decided to, over many workouts and many happy hours drinking Captain Morgan and many other things, to leave National Instruments in 2008 and start our marketing agency, TREW Marketing. And it's interesting because, so I come from very much from a corporate communications, investor relations, thinking about your stakeholders, and very much with a value on brand, everything that Rich talked about. And so when we started TREW, I almost immediately started thinking about mottos and values, and it's not, it's very rooted, our company name, in that value. Our motto is actually trust drives results. And one of the last things I was doing at NI was a global leadership communications training around leadership communication and building trust with people. And we all know in our personal relationships, in the 5 to 6 brands that Rich talked about, that we in our lifetimes are loyal to, we trust them. They always are consistent, they're differentiated, all the things that Rich talked about in that triangle. And so that's really important to us. The other thing that we spent a lot of time on, we really try to model good behavior of marketing, is having a very clear position. So we ended up on the cover of the Wall Street Journal a couple of years after we started TREW, because someone brought up Lehman Brothers earlier. We actually started TREW about 6 months before Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. Note to self, Don't start a company 6 months before the global economy goes in the tank. Thank God we didn't know what we didn't know, and we were already too far in. But the reason why we ended up on the Wall Street Journal was because of something I like to say no to grow. And in reality, what you need to do in your positioning and in your focus, and this is in anything that you're doing, in particular in marketing, because we can get so distracted, is you gotta, in TREW, we turn business away. Hospitals called us, nonprofits called us, companies that didn't have anything to do with engineering, and we said no. Because every engineering company that we work with builds our credibility for the next engineering company that comes to us and says, hey, we need help with marketing. If they come to our website and they see hospitals and nonprofits and other things, we're not gonna have that credibility. So again, we really try to model that behavior. Having my own company allows me to spend more time with my kids. I have a daughter who's, anyone a Razorback? Woohoo! All right, we got one. I have an airsoft assassin for a son. If anyone has sons that are into airsoft, we need to talk at happy hour. It's a crazy obsession. So we just celebrated 5 years last year. And we also took time to reflect and celebrate our partners and the recognition that we've gotten, including partners like CFE Media. And we're so happy to be here today. I am, and the whole team that's behind me that helped me with this presentation, but in particular our customers. So now let's dive in. Enough about me and enough about TREW. So my presentation is Create Marketing That Engineers Love. Of course, that's an oxymoron. And we have Dilbert to help us remember what engineers think about marketing. Here, Dilbert has a colleague who says, I really want to go into engineering, and he says, well, if you want to do that, you need like double the size of your brain. And he says, okay, well, forget that, maybe I'll go into marketing. And Dilbert says, oh yeah, that's good, that's just liquor and guessing. See, here we're at a marketing seminar, Captain Morgan's already come up. So we're being consistent with this. Of course, we know that it's actually a very methodical process. And all the examples that you heard today from the speakers back that up. All right, who's on Twitter? Anyone active on Twitter? All right, get your laptops, get your iPads or your tablets, your phones, get your Twitter account out. And I want to do a little polling today. So the first thing, if you would, use this unique hashtag that I developed, CFETREW. And I want you guys to tweet using this hashtag, what words would you use to describe our technical target audience? And now, if you guys in the back can bring up the screen here that shows the actual Twitter feed. Now, one of the things that I've done is, so there's a lot of continuity in today's presentations. So we heard Rob and Marianne and Britt and Leonard as well talk about Rob talked about perspective and engineers. Marianne talked about this as well. And Britt and Leonard, of course, did their skit at the beginning, really emphasizing this. So a lot of these are me, but you see things. What are the words that you use to describe? And it may be that it won't show up right now, but if you're on Twitter, please do go ahead and tweet this, because I want to capture this and share it back with CFE so that we can share it back with each other here. So you see things like, this is one thing I wrote down from the presentations today. Visual appearance is important, but content and accuracy is paramount. I'm going to show some data later that really backs that up. Healthy skepticism, show me. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Here's more. Rob said, let's see, wearing more hats, multi-crafted. So they're really getting spread thin, okay? So we get some examples here. If you want to go back to the slides now, that's fine. So I actually had one that I was going to start with that I have up there. They're skeptical of marketing, right? They want to know that it's proof. We talk about branding and they think it's fluff, but we know it's real. So how do we make this all work? So how many of you work in marketing? How many of you in your teams have defined personas? Okay, Maybe 10% of the group, maybe 15? Okay. So maybe this will help you. For those of you who don't have personas, strongly, strongly, strongly recommend. We have 3 personas at TREW. Everything we do all comes from that persona. The persona development is a lot of part of that foundational work that Rich was talking about. Okay, so I'm here to say that not all engineers are created equally. Even though we're in this niche, and they have a lot of commonalities, like all those things we just talked about, in reality, they're different. So let's talk about control engineer Charlie, his main role, uptime, optimal operation of manufacturing systems. He's on the younger side with about 8 to 10 years of hardware and software experience. His pain, directly related to his main role, is anticipating problems so that he can achieve that uptime. His decision making is mostly local at a product or service level. He's early in his career. His risk level, I think it was Rob, but I'm not sure, that brought up the technology adoption life cycle. If anyone, if you've read Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's very useful for marketers in explaining as you go across this adoption. I think it was Rob, because he was talking about the adoption of this cloud technology, mobile technology in the industrial manufacturing space. Okay, so as you go across, you have, of course, early adopters, early, late majority, and laggards. So Charlie's over here toward the end. He's risk averse. He's young in his career. He doesn't want to make any mistakes. All right, so the marketing challenge we have in reaching someone like Charlie, he wants a clean, content-rich website with a lot of diversity of types of content. He's going to go to Google. Someone brought up LinkedIn groups before. He's going to go to these types of places to get his information. All right, let's look at Senior Operations Manager Mike. This is actually my husband. His name's Tim, so if I call him Tim, you'll know why. And this is actually his, so he's on the older side, don't tell him I said that. 40 plus years of experience. He sets critical facility operational standards for a global 100 company. He actually works for Oracle. His pain, he's trying to predictively maintain all of the plants globally to keep costs down. And his decision making, he's late in his career, he's been around the block a bunch of times. All the plant managers around the country, around the world, when they get to an issue that they can't manage, it goes back up to Mike. They call him. He's been around the block, so he's willing to take more risks. Our marketing challenge, this is another thing that I think Rob talked about. So a lot of synergy between these talks today. Show it's technically field proven. I've had so many talks over happy hours and Captain Morgan and other things with my husband. I'm constantly picking his brain. And he will see through anything that is not authentic and expert. So he really wants to know that it's technically field proven. This is his quote. Tell Mike, Tim, tell me about Google. Do you use Google? And he was like, of course I use Google. And again, look at his age. Of course I use Google. How will you search on Google? How many pages will you go? And this is before CFE and TREW did some research that I'll share with you in just a minute. His quote was, I will be relentless on Google. I will search, and I will search, and I will search until I find what I need. Our marketing challenge then, I talked about the sources, Google, vendor websites. Tim, actually loves plant engineering and also engineering specifier consulting, the third property. He loves those magazines. Not a hard news guy. He wants the longer technical articles where he can hear from his peers. Finally, manufacturing VP Victor. He's in the middle range of age. He oversees a global manufacturing organization. This is actually the VP of manufacturing for NI. I told his wife I was using him. He has 20 years of experience. He's technical, but then he has an MBA. So his decision making, he's the guy. He's the guy in the end that we need to reach. He's willing to take risk, so he's earlier on the adoption life cycle. Our challenge for him, for any C-level, VP level, we just got to get their attention. And they heavily rely on their global team. They sit on industry boards. They're traveling all over the world. So the question is, how do we effectively and efficiently market to engineers that seem homogeneous, but in reality are so different. They're going to different places, they have different pains, they have different decision-making and risks that they're willing to take. Well, the old only way as marketers was marketers deciding what, when, and how the buyers like Charlie, Mike, and Victor would listen. And it was through these traditional media, events, print magazines, buying lists to augment our databases, collateral. All of these channels are still viable and extremely important today. The point here is that it was the only way. And one company single-handedly transformed our jobs as marketers. Hi, Google. Thank you for transforming our jobs. So today, we have to worry about SEO and AdWords and social media like Google+, all the things. Marianne talked a lot about social media today. Oh, and by the way, they're constantly changing the algorithm. So we really are on our toes now. What's really important to remember about this is that who is Google #1 solely focused on? Anyone? The searcher, the consumer. They don't care about us. Even though they know that we're trying to get on page 1, they're making it more and more difficult for us, not because they're trying to be mean to us as marketers, it's because they're solely focused on their customer. They want their customer to have the greatest possible experience. And what does that mean? It means the purest results that they get related to whatever they searched on. So now there's been a power shift. We don't have the power anymore. Marketers used to be in control. We decided when and where and how. But today, our prospects and our customers have the control. And if we embrace this, it's a beautiful thing for marketers. It's a beautiful thing. So the megaphone, a lot of companies that are all inbound or online will put, I actually changed it, it's a versus here. I don't view it as a versus. I view it as a complementary approach. So your megaphone of the old only vendor-controlled way is now complemented with the magnet of the customer-controlled way. So now, when we look at the magnet, and that's what I'm going to talk about for the rest of this talk, we know that content is the way to attract and convert customers. As I like to say, it is the currency of marketing, of online marketing today, in particular, but offline too. It is the currency of marketing today. In fact, you know, if you think about what was he attracted to about Rich's booth? It was content. It was how he presented that content. So don't just think about content as a white paper. It's more than that, okay? So the new way, customer-controlled search, buyers deciding what, when, and how they will search and when they will listen. And let me give you an example. So Charlie, he cares about uptime. He doesn't want his systems to go down. So because of that reason, he wants to add Wi-Fi to his systems. He wants to get an alert 24/7 if anything's going wrong. So he goes on Google and he does a search. Now, interesting, what comes up? Contributed article. I swear to God, I did not stage this. Really controlling. So here you see some Honeywell content that ended up in a Norwegian Technical University as curriculum, and boy, Honeywell's getting tons of credit for that. You see more PR. You see web pages as a reminder of how Google keeps our lives constantly in check, and the reality check that Rich talked about. I did this actual screen capture I did it, and then a couple weeks later I came back to actually research and define what each one of these were. 2 weeks, I couldn't find this middle search result. 2 weeks later, I couldn't find it on page 1. I just couldn't find it, period. It was gone. So if you think that you can celebrate for one day that you're on page 1, go ahead and celebrate, but have a plan for the next months because you're probably going to get booted off. Okay, so we're in a completely transformed environment. We as marketers need to embrace this. How do we create marketing that engineers love? The first thing, we need to be generous. We need to be generous to get found, and I mean generous with content. David Meerman Scott says, instead of one-way interruption, web marketing is about delivering useful content at just the precise moment a buyer needs it. He's a real thought leader. Definitely put him on your reading list. Seth Godin goes on to say, if you're not being generous with your content, he's coined the term the generosity economy, you will not only become obscure, but you may disappear. Rich, again, talked about an example where someone ignored their brand for a few years and they were gone. So really, and I actually was speaking down at University of Texas in Austin just last week at the Moody School of Communications with a group of senior PR strategy students. And I asked them, why do you think Seth Godin said this? And one of the first students got it right, because if you're not being generous, your competitors are. And they will be there when control engineer Charlie searches on adding Wi-Fi to process control systems. If you're not there, if you're not developing content that goes into the media, that goes on your web pages, that you're sharing with your partners like academia and analysts and other corporate partners, you will become obscure and you will disappear. We see marketing budgets putting more and more dollars toward content marketing. And so this is one of the first pieces of data I want to share with you from a study that CFE, Media, and TREW Marketing just did. We'll be launching it very soon. So it went to, actually it went to thousands. We had about 700 respondents, mostly self-qualifying in R&D and engineering, some in management. We asked the question, you are more likely to do business with a company that regularly produces new and current content. Nearly 75% agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. So to say that engineers don't care about content, they absolutely do. They are constantly looking for content to educate themselves and to learn how to do things better, faster, and cheaper in their jobs. So let me give you a few tips on getting found with your content. The very first thing, let me see a show of hands, if you just philosophically believe that you're generous in your company and with your marketing teams with content. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, keep your hands up if you would, go really high. All right, so I count 15, I'll be kind and say 15. Okay, and this is not uncommon. Okay, this is not uncommon. Are you generous? Okay, you can put your hand down. Agree to be generous. The second is create a content plan and make sure that repurposing is paramount in your content plan. I like to say, treat your content like a product. I actually tweeted this the other day and I got someone really wound up, one of my friends in the media, and we got offline and emailed and I explained, but it was good. It got him thinking. So let me give an example. This is a customer of ours who's in the Wi-Fi space, actually not in the control area, but they are in, their North American headquarters are in California, but the parent company is in Japan. One of their technical R&D experts wrote a very detailed technical article that was published in Japanese in Nikkei Electronics. We got that content, we got it translated into English, and we pitched it to EDN. It was published there. We took the core content of that, modified, not to in any way violate our agreements with EDN, modified the core content, added to it, turned it into a white paper, and put a lead form in front of it. So now we've gotten prominent PR coverage in 2 of the leading magazines in 2 continents, 2 of the largest economies in the world, and we're generating leads off of the same core content. It was featured in the e-newsletter, all 3 of them, actually, different instances and different e-newsletters. The engineers in California are taking, again, the core content, turning it into a technical presentation that they'll be presenting at Freescale Technology Forum in Dallas in a few weeks. It was turned into multiple blog posts and amplified via social media all the way through. When you have trained technical engineers who trained in writing, hopefully, who are writing this content for you, it's very difficult. The number one reason, the number one challenge that companies state that they have in developing content is bandwidth. Getting buy-in, getting engineers to take the time. So when they do, it behooves us in marketing to make sure that we leverage it as much as we possibly can. And that instills trust back in with the engineers to continue to give us content, because they know that we're going to take it and we're going to get everything we possibly can out of that effort by that person. Think keywords. And I don't mean keywords related necessarily to your product specs. And this is where, as marketers, we got to push back. Think of what Charlie searched on, adding Wi-Fi to process control systems. Be the advocate as the marketer for your customer. What's your customer going to search on that's going to get you found? And make sure that those keywords are those are your oceanfront property for your metadata when you go to promote that online. Amplify. Use the wire. Have a consistent news program and be putting your news out there, and use the wire. I get comments from people all the time that, well, how much is the wire? And I don't know, are we going to get anything out of that? Think of it very foundationally as amplification, and then think beyond it. The wire is not the way necessarily to get to your core media. Core media, you have to have relationships and be talking to them every week. The wire is a great tool for amplification. Okay, so then measurement. I want to talk at this point, and I'm going to continue to talk through the rest of these steps about marketing automation. So here at the stage of getting found, how do we measure and how do we use automation? We're a partner of a software company out of Boston called HubSpot, but I'm not here to talk about HubSpot. I'm here to talk philosophically about marketing automation. So many of you might use Marketo, Eloqua. We use Eloqua at NI. We have customers that use Marketo. So you're going to see me use examples from HubSpot, but any of the packages that I just mentioned or others have probably everything that you'll see here, probably in some cases even more. So getting found, measuring how to get found. This is a great example. There's a feature in HubSpot called Page Performance. You can go to it and you can search by just your blogs, all your web pages, by certain time frames, and you can start to see what pages are bringing in the most traffic. And then you can go make sure on those pages, do I have really clear calls to action along the funnel? Free calls to action, gated, or having lead forms in front of them. Make sure that you're getting the most possible return out of these pages that are driving the majority of your traffic. Then go look at the very bottom and see the pages that are doing really poorly and go fix them and see if you can't get improvement over time. You can use marketing automation at the get found stage to schedule all your media, all your social media, and monitor that. And make sure that and scheduling and making sure that your social media is being active and managed. Of course, you can be tracking your blog. Now, there's different tools that can do all of these things too. Of course, you can do this in Google Analytics, WordPress, others. What you'll see through the presentation, to create marketing that engineers love, I'm here today to tell you that you'd have a hard time convincing me that it won't require using some sort of marketing automation to do it right. And I'll keep explaining why. But you see the power of just a few tools just at this one stage that you get all in a marketing automation software package, and it serves up, the UI is really nice, and you can really manipulate the data very, very simply. Okay, step 2. Be intentional to drive conversion. So you say, okay, Rebecca, great. We need to be generous. Only 15 of us are being generous right now, so that leaves a lot of you with some homework to go back to your teams and have a little powwow about how you're going to be more generous with your content. But generous with what? We know that Google, and this is just looking at Google, not even looking at Bing or others, it's extremely competitive out there. I actually did the math. I think it's about 4 million searches per minute. And I know there's an engineer out here who's going to check my math. Just in the 6 years since I always say NI, since TREW started, we've seen a 3x increase in the number of searches happening per day or per year. Over 2 trillion searches last year in 2013. So there is an enormous amount of competition, and we see when Charlie searched on adding Wi-Fi to process control systems, we see Hirschman and Honeywell own it. They own it right there. They've got all the content, they're doing it in multiple channels, they own it. So you have to know what you're gonna own. But the good news is, and this is remarkable data, so I talked about Senior Operations Manager Mike being relentless on Google. We asked the question in the TREW and CFE Media survey that'll come out soon, when searching for information on a topic, basically how far will you go before you start your search over or you find what you need? The general public, I think the number is over 80% of the total number of clicks on Google happen on page 1. The general public, if you ask the general public this question, it would be like 85 and then one little, maybe a few bars to the right. What's interesting, what I noticed first is that our audience of engineers and scientists, the Victors, Mikes, and the Charlies, 1% more will go 11 pages or more than will go to page 1. So we've really got it made here, because if we are generous and intentional about our content, they're going to dig for it. So I think it comes out to over 40% will go 4 pages or more on Google. So this is really good news for us. And they care about the quality of content. So a follow-on question, how important or helpful to you are the following aspects of content? Far and away, the #1 attribute they care about is that it's technically accurate. And they care about having detailed diagrams and images and that it's current. And we know this, right? We know that this is really important. So it's about creating content. I mean, creating content and being generous with our content. But I said, okay, we need to be intentional. So this is a tool that we use when we help our customers developing these content plans. So you see, and this is in an ebook that we have, I'll talk about it in just a minute, but you see on the left, you have your campaign, or it could be a product, it could be a very specific part of even a campaign. And then as you go to the right, you have the stage of the funnel, the top, the middle, and the bottom. And every single stage of the funnel has multiple calls to action, free and gated. So that when you don't just think about, oh, we need a white paper. You know, we have a gap in that area. We need a white paper around that. No, you don't. You need a way to get found on that topic. And then you need, once you have that landing page or the blogs or case studies, things that are going to get you found for free, you're not going to have a lead form in front of it, then you need calls to action on all of those pages that drive people down the funnel. And you start to plan this out. So you shouldn't be creating one piece of content in a silo. You should be thinking about the funnel all the time. Because what it does is it creates what I like to call a closed loop experience, keeping people on your website, keeping them engaged, giving them offers all along the way. If anyone hasn't heard of Content Stream, it's one of CFE Media's products. And as you go through that process of creating your content plan all along the funnel, you're going to have gaps. And some you're going to have your engineers write, some maybe your marketing writers are going to be able to create. And then now we have an opportunity to license content from CFE Media and immediately fill the gap. So there's lots of tools out there now. It's not just reliant on your agency or your marketing writers. You can actually license content now, and with something like Content Stream. So I want to round out the area of being intentional to drive conversion, again, talking about marketing automation. In this stage, you can create landing pages very quickly that are perfectly and seamlessly branded to the rest of your website. And you can have leads automatically coming into your contacts database. Again, there's other tools that you can use, CMSs, contact databases, And often you'll have bigger databases that a marketing automation tool can also handshake with. So if you're a bigger company and use Oracle or some of the really, really big enterprise software packages, these work really well together. All right, so the last section. Be smart and measured to efficiently drive ROI. So we know, we've talked about this, the engineers are in control. They're in control of their buying process. And this is a good thing. If we can focus on giving them content all along the funnel that's directly aligned and intentional to what we're authentically experts in areas that we can own, then we can let them be in control and self-qualify themselves all the way through this process because we've got automation and intelligence to help us be efficient so that we're not focused on each lead that comes in, but we're focused on the ones that are raising their hand that we need to let sales know about ASAP. And let me walk through this. So here's an example where in marketing automation, and I think this is actually a misperception about marketing automation. A lot of people equate email automation with marketing automation. And marketing automation is actually so much more. It's everything I've talked about before, and it's a lot of what I'm going to talk about after. So here's an example where someone goes to a lead form, they complete that lead form, you have emails already set up, sitting in your automation system. As soon as that lead converts, they immediately get an email. And data has shown over and over and over that nurtured leads versus non-nurtured leads, not surprising, have a much greater chance of turning into an opportunity. So we've got to be nurturing. So here's a great example of lead nurturing. This is actually our Smart Marketing for Engineers lead gen. We use our own data all the time to talk to customers about this methodology. You can automatically have leads be added to lists. So if they convert on a particular piece of content, maybe if they convert and they have a particular title, those two things they come together, and through intelligence that you've already set up in automation, they automatically go into a certain persona bucket. You didn't do anything. You just set up the rules, and then as the system is exercised with your leads coming in, they get bucketed on their own. You can have simple ones like this one we have set up. Any lead that it simply equals the form being completed, they get the email field, they get added to our e-newsletter. We don't lift a finger. And I'm telling you guys, we're a small company probably compared to a lot of you guys, and we don't lift a finger with any of this. It's all automated. Another is lead scoring. How many of you have lead scoring set up? Okay, a few. So you guys know about this. Super powerful. So as people, you're offering these opportunities to engage, and as they're engaging, you have scores set up to attach to any particular activity. Some activities you don't value as higher, you give a low score. Some things that they convert on the most important piece of content you provide, you give them a high score. You just keep providing these opportunities, and as they go through, as they engage, you're automatically adding to their score, and then they raise their hands. So lead scoring is huge at this stage. Here's an example of a record that we have in our database, and this person has done all kinds of things. They've converted on all kinds of our content, they've clicked on some emails, they visited all kinds of web pages, and this is like a third of what this person's done in the last 2 months on our site. So we're not bothering them yet. Well, maybe we are now. But the person was on the site. He's doing everything that he wants, and we're using intelligence to then respond accordingly. So through lead intelligence, then you can do handshakes with your CRM, like Salesforce, Oracle, whatever it might be, and send alerts. The salesperson knows the score, can see all the history, and they can be very effective very quickly, and you're being efficient with your time, and the handshake with marketing is completely automated. All right, I want you guys that are on Twitter to go ahead and tweet, what is the biggest benefit for those of you who are on marketing automation software? What do you believe is the biggest, or what do you find to be the biggest benefit from using marketing automation software? And while the users of marketing automation software are tweeting, I'd like to see a show of hands in the room of those who do not use marketing automation software? Raise them real high so I can see. Okay, so only a few. Super. Yeah, okay, let's do that again. Raise your hand if you do not use marketing automation software. Okay, so maybe about 20. Cool, so somewhere in the middle. Okay, so that's it. It's easy, right? That's how you create marketing that engineers love. You be generous, you be intentional, be smart and measured, and automate, not just in certain parts of the funnel, but all along the funnel. And if you do this, we as marketers have the power. Our customers have the power too. It's okay. We can all have our power in our own ways. That's it. So share one thing that you will do immediately. So tweet that out now. So I'm just giving you guys all kinds of homework to do while we're sitting here. Share one thing that you will immediately do differently to create marketing that engineers love. And if you would use this hashtag CFETREW, and again, go ahead and do that. Take your time even this evening or as you're thinking about it, as you're going back to your offices tomorrow, and let's gather this so I can share it back and we can share it with each other. Or you guys can go to Twitter and do a search on CFETREW and see it for yourself. Lots of resources. We try to model the behavior. We blog twice. We have 50, 60, 70-page ebooks on everything under the sun about what we believe smart marketing for engineers should look like. So product launches, website redesign, building your foundation. If anyone wants to guest blog about something they're passionate about, we love having guest bloggers. So check that out. And I will take questions and a Captain Morgan. Thank you.